Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today marks exactly 3 weeks before JLPT. And to celebrate this amazing and beautiful event, I would like to suggest you to dive into my second video about preparing for N1 level of this exam. If you missed the first video, make sure to check it out, because it covers some important concepts that I will also use in today's talk. And in today's video, I will share what I have done this week for my JLPT preparation, then explain the results calculation method that is used for N1 level, and then I will go over my practice test results from this week. Then I will also give you some new tips based on my this week experience of JLPT preparation, and finally there will be a bonus section where I will share some of new words and phrases that I found interesting or important for N1 level. So without further interruptions, let's get started. Let's kick things off with a recap of what I have done this week for my preparation. Mostly, I just followed recommendations I gave myself last week in the previous video, and two main problems I highlighted then are vocabulary and time management, especially for the reading section. After solving several reading quizzes from Shinkansen Dokkai with timer, I took the whole timed test again. And for vocabulary, I just tried to tackle as many small tests as possible, focusing specifically on Mondai 2, 3 and 4 that appeared to be the most difficult for me last week. And I also made some listening practice tests and kanji quizzes. So now let's move on to the results of the practice test. This week I took another JLPT N1 test. I compiled it from several materials, starting from the weekly Nihongo no Mori vocabulary and grammar test, but it does not contain Mondai 7, so I took Mondai 7 from Shinkansen grammar book, and the reading sample I took from the Shinkansen reading textbook, just the Mogishiken, the practice test from this book, and finally listening test I took from the book by Nihongo no Mori. I'm afraid I can't share most of these materials, but I put the link to the Nihongo no Mori weekly test in the description, and you can find the link to the Google form with the test there as well. It slightly differs from the actual test by the number of questions in each Mondai, but I adjusted the calculations to make the result corresponding to the real test. And by the way, about calculations, you may have noticed that simply summing all points by sections does not give you 60 points for each part, and obviously does not give 180 maximum total score. For me, it was always kind of mystery how the organizers calculate the final score for the test. Of course, they weigh tasks of different difficulties differently, I supposed, but I didn't know it, so I found the answer to this question in one of the JLPT preparation books. Unfortunately, I don't remember its name. First, different Mondai indeed have different weights, as you may have noticed in the previous video. I have presented them in this table so you can understand the significance of different types of tasks and calculate your results during the preparation. In total, the maximum raw score for vocabulary and grammar is 56, for reading is 62, and for listening is 57. This raw score is then scaled to 60 using a simple formula. You just divide your score by the maximum raw score for the section and then multiply the resulting fraction by 60. To get the total score, you just sum these three members. Fairly easy, isn't it? But if you don't know it, you don't know it. Okay, so let's go back to my results. Learning from my last week mistakes, which you can check by clicking the link in the corner of the screen, I paid specific attention to time management. If you always run out of time in the reading section, just like me, and if you don't want to guess the correct answers to these questions, there are two options. First is to solve reading faster, and the second is to allocate more time for reading. I chose the second one. What I did was I just tried to tackle the vocabulary and grammar section as quickly as possible. If I didn't know the meaning of the word at all from this section, I just picked an answer randomly without wasting any time for it. In contrast, spending more time on reading is fruitful for me, because when I do practice tests without time limitations, the results are usually not that bad as they were last week when I took the test with the timer. So, following this recommendation for myself, I finished the vocabulary and grammar part in just 25 minutes, leaving 85 minutes for the reading section. And you know what? It worked well. I could spend enough time on each text and question and still had 2 minutes left when I finished the reading section. I felt really good about it even before checking the answers, but then I checked them and the results confirmed my feelings. My reading score was more than twice as good as last time. So I got 44 out of 60, which combined with 34 for vocabulary and grammar gives me 78 for these two parts. Thus, I needed only 22 points for listening to pass the overall score requirement. Given my previous results, scoring more than 30 in listening shouldn't have been a problem, and it actually wasn't. I got 51 for listening this time, which is even better than last time. The total score for 3 parts was therefore 128, meaning that I passed the exam quite easily. Yeah, unfortunately that's only the practice test. And adding another fly in the ointment of my results, the results for reading so much depends on the text topic and difficulty. This week I even asked my Japanese friend to help me with Mondai 12, which is one of the long-sized texts from the previous sample test, because it was super difficult for me and I just skipped it because I ran out of time. And despite she explained me some words and sentences, it still took about an hour to solve all 4 questions for this text. Thanks to her help, I finally grasped the meaning of the text and could answer all questions correctly, but it took more time than you can spend on 90% of all questions of the reading sections altogether. So of course my concentration wasn't 100% because we talked about random things as well, but the difficulty of this text was just on another level compared to what I've done this week. The problem is that the same situation may easily happen on the real exam, so let's keep in mind the time limit and don't spend much more time than recommended for each question. By the way, I think I will tell you about these time recommendations, like how much time should you spend for each section, for each question, in my next video. So stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Now, let's talk about some tips and strategies that I picked up this week during my preparation. First of all, time management and especially reading section. My solution this time was to allocate more time for reading section so I can solve questions of this part calmly and at my normal pace. And the results show that this simple approach can significantly improve your scores even without improving your language ability that much. And in order to be able to allocate more time for reading, you need to complete the vocabulary and grammar section quickly and confidently. So this week I focused on tasks from this section that appear to be the most difficult for me, which are Mondai 2, 3 and 4. These kind of questions require the understanding not just of the word's meaning, but also of how these words and phrases are used in Japanese language. And the method that I found quite useful for these kind of questions during your preparation is to use AI tools like JLPT. I asked it to provide example sentences and typical phrases involving words I encountered during my preparation. This method definitely helped me to memorize these words and the way they are used in the language much better. And the last tip for this week is don't forget to practice even your strongest points. Like in my case, they are grammar and listening sections. The reason is quite obvious. By mastering and practicing these areas, you can boost your overall score. So if you got a low score for example, vocabulary or reading, you can still pass the exam by the overall score. Finally, as promised, let me share some interesting words and phrases that I encountered this week during my preparation. Not all of them are necessarily new for me, but for most I really needed some reinforcement of my knowledge. So these were the words I wanted to share with you this week. Practicing them in context helped me to understand how to use them more naturally, which is crucial for Mondai 2, 3 and 4. And of course, if you come across any interesting words or phrases during your preparation or just regular studies, feel free to share them in the comments below and let's study together. Dear friends, thank you very much for watching until this point. I hope you found today's tips and insights helpful for your own JLPT N1 or maybe even N2 preparation. Don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to this channel to stay updated with my journey and more tips for JLPT N1 preparation. I will be hopefully back next week with more updates and interesting strategies. So there are only 3 weeks left now, so let's smash this exam and see you soon.